You like teenage girls. When you say teenage, how old are we talking?
And have you done anything wrong?
Lots of things wrong.
Audio Jungle. Against her will.
We went from seeing you or talking to you daily or weekly to not seeing you in 2 years.
Kelly was physically and emotionally abusive. We were required to call him Daddy.
You're killing me, man! This is not about music!
Hello friends, how are you guys today? I hope you guys are having an amazing day so far. If you are not having an amazing day, I really hope that your day gets better from here on out. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope you guys are all having an amazing week so far, and we have been covering the R. Kelly trial in great detail, and today we are going to continue our coverage of the trial. We're going to move on with a few more witness testimonies, and we're going to talk about a couple of odd things that have been happening in the courtroom. So why don't you guys sit back, relax, and let's get right into it. Okay guys, so I want to start this video off like every other video and say thank you guys so much for clicking on this video. I really hope that you enjoy this video, and if you don't enjoy it, I hope you at least give it a chance. And if you guys are returning to my channel, thank you guys so much for returning to my channel. I really appreciate it, and it really does mean a lot to me. There is quite a few witness testimonies I want to get through today without making the video incredibly long. I want to review Anthony Nevaro, his testimony, Tom Arnold's testimony, a girl named Addy, that is the alias that they gave her. I don't know her actual identity, and John Doe number 1. So let's try and get through all of that testimony today, and let's go ahead and start with Anthony Nevaro. Okay guys, so let's go ahead and start his testimony. Now, Anthony Nevaro is a former runner of R. Kelly's, and he is a low-level assistant in R. Kelly's music studio called Tracks. He said himself he used to escort R. Kelly's girlfriends around on R. Kelly's behalf, and he was keeping them confined into specific rooms in the mansion. He also said he saw Rob's associates giving out R. Kelly's number to girls at concerts and the malls and stuff. Anthony said that he was never allowed to speak to any of the girls, but it was part of his job was escorting the girls around the house. He said he escorted a girl to her room and she was supposed to stay there. He said if he ever saw a girl where she was not supposed to be, I was to tell Rob or a manager. He said, quote, they were not supposed to be wandering around. They were supposed to be in their room, end quote. He said working with R. Kelly was like working in the Twilight Zone. He said the things he had to do was a bit uncomfortable. He said he has since worked with Taylor Swift, Jay-Z, and Kanye West, and it's fine. Just a normal professional working environment. He said there was many young girls around all the time when he worked for Robert. He also said he never witnessed R. Kelly having sex on the property, and he also never witnessed any physical abuse. He said sometimes the girlfriends wanted to leave, but they could not. But then he said since they could not get a ride though, or because no one could get a hold of R. Kelly. So the girls were not allowed to leave unless they got permission from R. Kelly first, is what he was saying. But then he said they wanted to leave, but they could not. Oh, but that's just because they couldn't get a ride, though. So I don't know. He said that he witnessed verbal abuse that R. Kelly would engage in with the employees, but in his interview in 2020, he told the feds that he never saw anything like that. So he said he didn't see anything like that ever, but now on the stand he's saying he did see verbal abuse. So I'm not sure, like maybe he's not credible, I don't know. He said the rooms he said the rooms had terrible odors and he had to clean them, but he said he never saw any buckets of pee or poop. Because remember, a lot of the girls said that they had to pee or poop in buckets because they weren't allowed to go to the bathroom. They were denied access to the bathroom. And he is saying that he never saw anything like that, but he had to clean the rooms and they had very terrible odors. But he didn't know why, I guess. Okay, on cross, he said if the girls wanted to leave, they could have just walked out the door. He then said that guests at the mansion usually had their IDs checked twice, once at the front gate and again inside. And he said he never brought minors there. Hang on, dude. You're saying you saw many young girls there all the time, but you personally never spoke with or dealt with minors. That doesn't sound right to me. I mean, we know that there was many minor girls at his residence, but this guy is saying, yeah, there was many young girls there, but I didn't deal with any of them. They were all the girls I dealt with were adults. Okay, sure. But the main thing that I want to talk about is at the very beginning of his testimony, he said that he was in charge of escorting the girls around on R. Kelly's behalf and keeping them confined to specific rooms in the mansion. What does that sound like to you guys? This guy is in charge of taking these girls and putting them in specific rooms and keeping them confined in that room. That sounds like unlawful imprisonment to me. I mean, what do you guys think? I don't know. But he is literally just admitting that on the stand. So I don't know if anything's going to happen to him or if he isn't going to be charged or if he is going to be charged. I have no idea. But let's go ahead and move on. Now we are going to go ahead and talk about Tom Arnold. Tom Arnold was a former assistant of R. Kelly. He says on the stand, when he was on the stand, he spoke about his job. He said that they had to follow rules as well. The employees also had to follow Rob's rules. He said that him and the other employees were equipped with pieces of paper with Rob's number already on them to give to the girls, like at concerts or malls or wherever they were. McDonald's probably. Rob loves McDonald's. So they were sitting, so these people were literally sitting at home, writing Rob's number on pieces of paper and folding them up and having them ready for whenever they're out and about. And Rob's like, that girl right there, give her my number. Like, I mean, he was very rich at the time. Like, why didn't he just get business cards? And if he didn't want, like, if he didn't want his name on it or anything, you can get, like, business cards with just a phone number and nothing on it. It's just, I don't know. But these employees are literally sitting at home and writing his number on a bunch of pieces of paper and folding them up and putting them in their pockets and having them ready. That's just weird. Tom Arnold also said that he was not allowed to talk to Rob's girlfriends either. And when he drove them around, he was instructed by Rob to flip the rearview mirror because the girls were not allowed to make eye contact with anyone. Now that is just weird, okay? That is just weird, and that's not safe. Like, that's illegal. That's not safe. That is illegal, and I mean, you're supposed to be able to see what's behind you. Like, what if you were getting into a wreck? I mean, I'm just saying. He said if he or anyone else messed up or didn't follow Rob's rules, then they would be docked pay. Now, we've heard this before. We'll probably hear it again. But if the employees did not follow Rob's rules, they were docked pay. He said he was docked pay once because he slept through Rob's call one time. I guess he called him in the middle of the night or early morning hours or something, and he slept through the call. So he was docked pay for that. He said that he was docked pay one time for forgetting Rob's lunch. He said one time everybody got their pay docked because someone ate Rob's donuts. Everybody, so I think everybody got their pay docked because someone ate his donuts and nobody would fess up to it. So he probably docked everybody's pay, which, whatever, but okay. But the one thing that he spoke about that made him actually quit was Rob docked his pay one time because he wanted a last-minute trip to Disney World, and he wanted to take his girlfriends to Disney World for a last-minute trip, which to me is already weird because yeah, he was almost 50 at the time, I think, and his girlfriends were like 17, 18, and he's like taking these little girls to Disneyland. It just sounds weird. But they were supposed to go on this Disney trip. It was a VIP experience, and it was like kind of a last minute trip. So when Tom made the trip, he knew that everybody had to be female. That was one of Rob's rules. Everyone had to be female. His girlfriends weren't allowed to even get help from a store associate that was a male. So he said that he just took what he could get, and the only tour guide they had was a male, and he just took what he could get because they wanted this last minute trip to Disney World. Well, when they got there, the bus got there. It was a VIP experience, so the tour guide came to greet them. He said that Rob got off the bus and took one look at the male tour guide and canceled the whole damn trip and got back on the bus, and they left. And he said that, of course, Rob was pissed off that it was a male tour guide, and he said the next week when he got his check in the mail, the taxes had been taken out and the remaining pay was $0. So he took $1,500, because that's what he was paid, I guess, per week. He took $1,500 from him for getting a male tour guide. And that is what upset him enough to quit. He said, I wasn't happy, Rob wasn't happy, and my wife wasn't happy. So that's what made him quit. It's kind of funny to me how like everybody sees Rob and they know deep down what he's doing with these young girls, and a lot of them are minors, but they quit because they got their pay docked. They didn't quit because, you know, what he's doing with these teenagers. They didn't quit to help these teenagers, but they quit because they got their pay docked. That's whatever. Morals, people, morals. All right, next we're going to move on to Addy. Now, Addy is an alias. That is not her real name. And she was on the stand as well. And we're going to go through her testimony. These people were not on the stand for like a super long time. So their testimony isn't as long as like Azriel's or Geronda's or anything like that. But Addy. So we are going to go ahead and move on to Addy. Now, Addy is an alias as well. She is 43 years old now. She claims that she was sexually assaulted by Robert in 1994. She was 17 at the time. She actually remembered the date and everything. She said it was September 2nd, 1994, which, if you remember that date, that is literally 2 days after R. Kelly married Aaliyah. So that's gross, okay? She went, I mean, it's gross already that he was with Aaliyah anyway and he married her, but he was telling everybody he loved her, and yet he's assaulting other girls, young girls, at the same time. Whatever. She went to a concert. It was called the Super Fest, and it was at the American Airlines Arena. and she was with her 19-year-old best friend. She said R. Kelly was there, Salt and Peppa was there, and Aaliyah was also supposed to perform, but unfortunately she did not perform. She said that she actually did not care for R. Kelly's music that much. She said it was just okay. She said she sat very close to the stage, and she said after the show, members of his entourage came up to her and her friend and asked them if they wanted to go backstage. She said that they were dressed, the members of his entourage were dressed like club bouncers, all in black and probably the glasses. I don't know if they had sunglasses, but she said they were dressed like club bouncers. She said that she had a brochure for the actual for the performance, a little brochure, and that is what R. Kelly autographed. She said he autographed that for her, and she still and they used it as evidence. It was one of the pieces of evidence. She said that she did, in fact, tell R. Kelly that she was 17, which is really important because a lot of the girls did lie to R. Kelly and tell them that they were 18 at first, and then later said they told him they were not 18. But she said that she told him right off the bat she was only 17, she was not 18 years old. She said that after meeting him and getting his autograph and everything, she said that he eventually cleared the dressing room. It was actually in the dressing room. She said he cleared the dressing room and asked her if she wanted to audition. And she said that he actually wrote his room number down on the same brochure that he autographed for her. And it was room number 310. And it was on that brochure that she showed in evidence. She said after the room was cleared, he played her and her 19-year-old best friend a song that he was working on. It was a new song he was working on. Nobody knew what it was. He played it for them. R. Kelly then asked them if they wanted to play a game to see who could kiss better. She said he kissed her friend first, then turned and kissed her. She said he pushed himself onto her and started being more aggressive and started moving her or moving her towards the back of the room. So he kissed her friend, turned to her, kissed her, and started pushing himself onto her and becoming more aggressive, and he pushed her towards the back of the room. She said, quote, "I was in front of the counter and he was behind me. He started holding my wrist and unzipping my pants, and he started having intercourse with me. She said he had sex with me unprotected," end quote. Her 19-year-old friend was still in the room at the time when this was happening, and R. Kelly actually tried to grab her friend's hands to make her participate, but her friend actually refused. So he's doing this to her 17-year-old best friend, and she's just standing there, probably shocked, and he tries to grab her hands as well and make her participate, but she refused to do so. Addy said, "At this point, I was in complete shock. I was very introverted and shy, and I didn't know what to say at all. I just went completely blank." After R. Kelly was done, her and her friend ran to the door, and they unlocked the door and ran out of there. She said this was the one and only time meeting up with R. Kelly or meeting him at all. He did write his room number on her brochure that he autographed, and she was supposed to go to his room. She was supposed to meet up like later on or the next day or sometime to audition for him in his room, and she didn't even do that because of what happened. So that was the one and only time she ever met him and ever had an interaction with him. She said that her friend tried to get her to contact the police and to press charges, but she was not comfortable with doing that. She said she was also an aspiring artist and was afraid she would get blacklisted from the entertainment industry. She also said that she didn't want to be victim shamed either. So that was her testimony, and let's go ahead and get into the cross-examination from R. Kelly's defense lawyers. So the defense, they totally grilled her. Addy gave the brochure to the prosecution, and that's what they used for the evidence, but the defense completely grilled her about that. Also, the defense said, quote, "Someone raped you, according to you, and you kept the program as memorabilia," end quote. Addy's response was, quote, "I was in a box." She said she didn't tell anyone because she did not want any victim shaming and trauma at that time. The defense asked her why she waited 2 decades to contact law enforcement. She said, "I did not want any more trauma." They said, the defense said, "So there came a time when the victim shaming didn't bother you anymore?" She replied with, "I'm an adult now, and I'm not a little girl anymore," end quote. So that is pretty much her testimony. It was just about that one time, time she met him, and that one interaction she had. And the cross-examination, they tried to grill her. They tried to act like, oh, you kept the memorabilia, and now all of a sudden, why now are you telling this story, A lot of people ask that question, and, I mean, we should know by now that victims of sexual abuse rarely tell their story immediately. Like, sometimes it takes a long time for them to come out with what happened to them, especially if the perpetrator is someone who is incredibly powerful. I'm sure it's very scary to come out against them. But let's go ahead and move on to John Doe and his testimony. Now, his testimony is a lot longer, so I saved it for last, but let's go ahead and get into his testimony. Okay, so John Doe, number 1, the alias they gave him is Lewis, and his real name is Richard Arlene Jr. Now, let's talk about his charges first before we talk about his testimony. In 2020, he was charged with attempted bribery for trying to pay off a witness to not cooperate with the government in this case against R. Kelly. So Richard told the court that R. Kelly had nothing to do with the $2 million bribe, and he said he was pursuing the witness because he was supposed to allegedly receive a payment of $200,000. Now, this guy is trying to say that R. Kelly had nothing to do with this bribe that he is charged with. He said, R. Kelly didn't do anything. I did this on my own. I did this my own free will. R. Kelly had nothing to do with this. Are you sure? I mean, who else has $2 million to just give away? And he tried to commit this bribery and supposedly did not know where his payment was going to come from. So you're telling me that you are going to commit this bribery and just come up with this huge amount of money to try and bribe this person with, and you're doing it because a little birdie told you that you were going to get $200,000 if you did it? Like, where did he think this money is coming from? I mean, nobody's that stupid. I mean, everybody, like, where else would that money be coming from? Who else has that much money to pay $2 million to the witness and $200,000 to him? And it's to benefit R. Kelly. Like, who else would? That's just silly to me, but whatever. That's another reason why I don't buy the fact that R. Kelly is saying that he is broke. He's been locked up since 2019, but this happened in 2020. But R. Kelly is supposed to be so broke that he claims he cannot even afford copies of court transcripts. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. He's so broke he can't afford copies of his court transcripts, but he can afford to pay $200,000 to this guy and $2 million to the witness. I don't buy it. I don't know. What do you guys think? He said he tried to bribe the witness so that none of the recordings would get out. I mean, that's a good excuse. And we'll talk about this in his testimony, but you know, R. Kelly records all of his sexual encounters, and he recorded some with this young man as well. So he said he tried to make this bribe so none of the recordings would get out, because if there was a big trial and they got all this evidence, then they would probably show these recordings and the recordings would get out. So yeah, that's a good excuse. I mean, it's a good excuse, but where did they think the money was going to come from? Where did he think the money was going to come from? I don't know. So R. Kelly has been arrested. Like I said, R. Kelly was arrested in 2019. And since then, 3 people have been charged with trying to intimidate, threaten, or coerce or influence potential witnesses. One was arrested for attempting to bribe a woman who said she had sex with R. Kelly when she was 17, and he attempted to bribe her for her silence. He was arrested for that. Another man was arrested and charged for setting Azriel Clary's car on fire. Now, he is getting 5 years for that arson. And remember, Donnell Russell was also charged for making that threat to Tamara Burke. Tamara Burke is the woman who started the Mute R. Kelly movement. She's also one of the founders of the Me Too movement. And she was in and she contributed to the Surviving R. Kelly docuseries. Now, when they were doing the premiere of the docuseries, Donnell Russell called in a threat to this woman, and he is R. Kelly's former manager, and he made a threat during the premiere of the Surviving R. Kelly docuseries, and he was charged with that as well. So, I mean, like I said yesterday, or the Monday, in my video, the legal experts are saying that the prosecution is not doing a good job of proving racketeering and of showing a criminal enterprise. Remember, they said, you know, they did a great job of proving all these things, but they're not proving a criminal enterprise. But the prosecution isn't done yet. And I think just by looking at all of these R. Kelly employees who are facing charges for intimidation and threatening witnesses and all that, that proves racketeering to me. That shows me that there's some sort of criminal mafia type enterprise at work here, and R. Kelly is not the only person doing this stuff. He had to have had help. I mean, he obviously has help. Look at all these people who have been charged for helping him and for doing crimes on his behalf to help him. So that proves some sort of criminal enterprise to me. But if none of those witnesses say that R. Kelly told them to do it, and all these witnesses say they did it on their own free will, they might not be able to prove racketeering. But just, I mean, in my opinion, that shows a criminal enterprise to me. I mean, the guy set Azriel Clary's car on fire. They're threatening people. The doctor, remember R. Kelly's doctor, was doxxed, and he said he was leaving town as soon as he got off the stand. I mean, and that woman who just got ran over. I mean, that could have nothing to do with anything. But it just seems too weird to me. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into John Doe's testimony. So, like I said, his alias is Lewis, and his name is Richard Arlene Jr. And he said he first met R. Kelly in 2006 when he was 17 years old, and he was working at, guess where? McDonald's drive-thru, that rock and roll McDonald's drive-thru in Chicago, which is so weird to me. I don't know, R. Kelly must really, really love McDonald's. Like, he has a thing with McDonald's. He's always at McDonald's. But this teenage boy, he was an aspiring rapper at the time, and he was a senior in high school. R. Kelly went through the drive-thru. He slipped this guy his phone number on a piece of paper. The guy goes home. He tells his mom, like, Mom, R. Kelly came through the drive-thru and he gave me his phone number. And his mom actually takes the phone number and calls R. Kelly, trying to help her son with his music career. He said R. Kelly lures him in with false promises to help him with his music career. So R. Kelly invited him and his mom to his mansion. They go. John Doe gets a picture with R. Kelly. R. Kelly gets him alone and whispers to him, "Come alone next time." So he says, "Come alone next time." So John Doe starts going to R. Kelly's mansion, and he's going to the recording studio in his house that R. Kelly calls the Chocolate Factory. He has that recording studio in his house that he calls the Chocolate Factory. He started going there and recording music and like getting feedback from R. Kelly. R. Kelly initially told him that he did have some potential, but then he later told him that he did not like the music that John Doe was working on. He said that over the course of their friendship or relationship or whatever it was, whatever you want to call it, he was intimate with R. Kelly, and R. Kelly gave him oral sex, made him have sex with other women, and routinely recorded their sexual encounters on his iPad. He said that R. Kelly held those recordings over his head as blackmail. He said one of the first times he ever went over to R. Kelly's mansion, they were sitting down and talking for a while, and R. Kelly asked him what he was willing to do for the music. He said he told R. Kelly, "I'll do anything you need. I'll carry your bags, anything you need." R. Kelly said, "Nah, that's not what I mean. That's not it." And then R. Kelly said, "Have you ever had a fantasy about having sex with a man?" He said he told R. Kelly no. And he said he liked having sex with women. He then said R. Kelly crawled on his knees to me and proceeded to give me oral sex, even though I was not into it. He said he told R. Kelly he didn't really like it, and R. Kelly then stopped. I'm sorry, I forgot a trigger warning. Trigger warning, you guys. John Doe's testimony is very graphic, so trigger warning. John Doe said that R. Kelly then told him to keep the encounter to himself and then told him, "We're family now." Family? You do that with family? That's weird. He did later say as our relationship got stronger, he called me his brother. He said that I was like his little brother. Then there was that other guy that he called nephew. Remember that guy who he made Azriel Clary have sex with that guy? He called him nephew. He calls this guy his little brother and says we're family now because of what they did together. Like, what the hell is going on? What is his obsession with, like, incest? It's so weird. Of course, he probably might have some kind of incest obsession, because remember, R. Kelly was molested by a family member when he was only 6 years old up until he was older. By his older sister, actually. He was molested by her. So, I mean, it could be him trying to take control over his own abuse. Like, when you are abused and molested as a child, sometimes you try to take control of that abuse and become the abuser when you get older, and you try to take control and be like, I'm never going to be in that position again. I'm going to be the one on top and doing this. So, like, it could be him, like, trying to take control of his own abuse. I don't know. Or maybe it's just some kind of sick pleasure he gets. I have no idea. What do you guys think? All I know is that, yes, he was molested as a child, but he is a grown man now, and he knows it's wrong. So it's no excuse anymore. I know a lot of people say, like, the cycle of abuse, and that happens, that stuff, like, the abused becomes the abuser, but it doesn't matter. When you get older, you know right from wrong, and at that point, you're wrong, and it is your fault no matter what you've been through. But anyway, John Doe said that R. Kelly never abused him, but he did give him oral sex when he was 17 years old. Now, the legal age in Illinois is 17, but if the person, the older person is older than 10 years older than you, then it is still considered sexual abuse. And R. Kelly was almost 40 at the time. So it's still considered sexual abuse even though the legal age is 17, but it's only 17 if the older person is no more than 10 years older. John Doe said he performed for him a few times in the studio, but he mostly played basketball and attended his parties. So R. Kelly would just have him play basketball with him and attend his parties. Remember, there was that one guy whose entire job was to be available whenever R. Kelly wanted to play basketball. So, like, John Doe just said he played basketball with him mostly and just would attend his parties at his house. He then said over his 15-year relationship with R. Kelly, they had numerous sexual encounters. Most of them were recorded. Most of the time, R. Kelly was coercing him to have sex with women, the girls who were living with R. Kelly at the time, R. Kelly's girlfriends. So R. Kelly wanted him to have sex with his girlfriends while he recorded and while he watched. Eventually, R. Kelly told John Doe that he needed to also follow Rob's rules, and he also needed to call him Daddy. That's weird. That's so weird. John Doe then started describing an instance when they were in the garage together, and R. Kelly snapped his fingers 3 times and summons a naked girl, and she crawled out from under the boxing ring and gave R. Kelly oral sex, then gave him oral sex as well. I mean, this is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard. I mean, did R. Kelly plan this with this girl? Like, did she know what was going on? Like, did they plan it together and he recently put her under the boxing ring and she knew what she was supposed to do? I mean, obviously she knew what she was supposed to do, but like, did he recently put her under there? Or is she like always under there? Like how long was this girl under there? Does she just stay under there? I mean, was she hiding under there? Is she always naked under there? Is she cold? Like, does he feed her? Like, I have so many questions. That is just so weird. I don't mean to laugh, but it's an uncomfortable laugh. It's just weird. But anyway, he said that they were in the garage. She came out from under the boxing ring and was giving him oral sex. He said, quote, R. Kelly was telling her to say that she liked it. He wanted her to say my name. I didn't mind it. It was a weird situation. I wouldn't have minded it if it was just me and her. End quote. So John Doe continued playing basketball with R. Kelly and having sex with him while he finished high school in 2007. He also said he introduced R. Kelly to some of his friends, which is Jane Doe number 2. He spoke about a time when R. Kelly was having his girlfriend give John Doe oral sex. He said R. Kelly was in the room, he was recording it, and it was just an uncomfortable situation. So he said he could not get excited because it was an uncomfortable situation. So he said R. Kelly got mad and ended up yelling, quote, I don't know what you want, a man or a woman, end quote. Because remember, R. Kelly gave him oral and he wasn't into it. And now he's having his girlfriend give him oral and he wasn't into it. So he's like yelling at him like, I don't know what you want, a man or a woman. Like, seriously, dude? Like, maybe he just didn't want some weird old guy watching him and recording it. You ever think of that? So, okay, anyway, remember Nephew, who R. Kelly forced Azriel to have sex with as a punishment? Well, Richard, aka Lewis, John Doe number 1, said that Nephew was his friend from high school. He said he introduced R. Kelly to him in 2006. So just like some of the girls, R. Kelly would have them bring the girls some of their girlfriends. So just like that, he had John Doe bring him some male friends as well. So Azriel was forced to have sex with this Nephew guy, who is John Doe number 2, and after she was done having sex with him, it was in my previous video in Azriel's testimony, she said that R. Kelly told her that he had been grooming Nephew since he was young, just like you, talking to Azriel. Like, I've been grooming him since he was little, just like I've been grooming you since you were little. That is what she said he told her. So, okay, whatever. Like, he is just, it seems like he's proud that he's grooming all these people. It's disgusting. John Doe then identified nephew on the stand via photo. So it is indeed the same person that Azriel was forced to have sex with. So, moving on. He then spoke of a time in 2018 when R. Kelly lived in the Trump Towers, when where they had the Gayle King interview. He said R. Kelly tried to force John Doe and nephew to have sex with each other. So he said they were in the Trump Towers where he lived, and R. Kelly tried to make John Doe number 1 and number 2 have sex with each other. And he said that he said, quote, R. Kelly instructed me and nephew to touch each other and to kiss each other, end quote. He said he kept declining and telling him no, he didn't want to do it. And after he kept declining to have sex with nephew, R. Kelly then began having sex with nephew himself. And when he started having sex with nephew, R. Kelly then said to nephew, quote, come on, nephew, let's show him how it's done, end quote. Oh my God. John Doe said, quote, it was clear to me that R. Kelly was in charge because he was instructing nephew on what to do throughout the sexual encounter, end quote. He said, quote, I really wanted to make it in the music industry, so I maintained a friendship with him until 2018, end quote. John Doe then said that the last time he actually saw R. Kelly in person, R. Kelly made him write a letter saying that people were trying to pay him to say that him and R. Kelly had a homosexual relationship. So we've definitely heard that before. I mean, R. Kelly makes all these people write down letters, and then he takes them and gives them to his attorney, thinking that since they wrote it down, it's going to get him out of any sort of trouble at all. Like, that just is ridiculous. That just does not happen. People do not just write letters willy-nilly and like telling on themselves and like exploiting themselves or exposing themselves and then gives the letters to R. Kelly so he can give to his attorney. That is ridiculous. People don't do that. And it's just stupid. John Doe said that R. Kelly told me the letter was to protect me and him. He said R. Kelly told me what to write in the letter word for word. The prosecution then asked him, they finished their questioning with this question, quote, what did R. Kelly do to help you advance your music career, end quote. And John Doe, Richard, said nothing, end quote. And I forgot to mention this as well, my previous video. I forgot to mention this as well in my previous video, but when Azriel testified, the prosecution asked her the same thing as well, was their final question, because she was an aspiring artist as well, and they asked her, so what did R. Kelly do to further your music career? And she said nothing. And then they also did the same to Geronda Pace, I believe. They asked her at the end the same thing. What did he do to help you in your music career? And she said nothing. So they're definitely proving that R. Kelly is promising to help all these people with their music career and then not lifting a finger to help them and just using them and making them do all these horrible things. But I mean, I don't know. So that is John Doe number 1 and his full testimony. So we got through everything I wanted to get through today, and it's just getting wild, you guys. It is getting wild. The testimony is getting more graphic and crazier, and then there's just weird stuff happening in the courtroom, and I don't know. It seems like this trial is just going to get worse and worse, but I don't know. I'm interested in what the defense's strategy is going to be when it's their turn. And I'm also interested in who is going to take the stand in R. Kelly's defense, because there's all these witnesses taking the stand against him. So I wonder who's going to take the stand in his defense. Is Joycelyn Savage? Is she going to testify on behalf of R. Kelly? I'm really wondering, because she's still considered R. Kelly's girlfriend, but her dad said recently that he came into town at the end of August, because Joycelyn was supposed to take the stand at the end of August, and he was going to do, quote, everything in his power to make sure she did not take the stand, end quote.
September the 3rd. This is supposed to be the week where my daughter is supposed to take this stand. And we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that she doesn't take the stand.
So he said he's going to do everything in his power to make sure she does not take the stand. And she was supposed to take the stand at the end of August. So that tells me that the defense is still not their turn. So she would have been testifying for the prosecution. So I wonder if the prosecution subpoenaed her to testify, and then her dad and her family came into town to get the subpoena squashed somehow to where she didn't have to testify against R. Kelly. But her dad later said that he did not want her on the stand because he was afraid she would perjure herself and get in trouble.
I am concerned about my daughter taking the stand, getting up there, perjuring herself, which would not be in her best interest to do at this time. My intent to go up there between August the 30th and the 3rd, if that is so, to make sure she tells the truth and not to perjure herself on that stand. Period.
So maybe her dad, thinks that she was gonna lie for him, and he was afraid she'd get caught under oath and get in trouble. I don't know. So I'm really interested to see if Joycelyn is going to be testifying for the defense later on in the trial. But anyway, that is all for today, you guys. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments down below. I really appreciate all of your guys' thoughts and opinions about everything that we talk about on this channel. Anyway, guys, so let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Let me know how you think the lawyers are doing. Do you think that the trial is going good? Do you think they're proving the enterprise well? Do you think that R. Kelly is going to get off? Like, what do you guys think? I'm very interested in to hear what you guys think. And yeah, so that is all for today, you guys. I will continue the coverage of this trial, and as well as some other videos I got planned for you guys. So that is it for today, you guys. So if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It would really, really help me out, and I would appreciate it so much. And until next time, you guys, in a world where you can be anything, please be kind to each other. Bye, guys.